So as we begin, I'd like to acknowledge the first peoples of the land on which we meet, all of us in different places. And here where I am, the Gubbi Gubbi people are the traditional owners of this land, the First Nations people. I honour them and their ancestors for their survival, their continued traditions, their spiritual connection, and their caring for country and sky and water and sea. We pay respect to elders past and present and continue to support their right for self-determination. We are committed to reconciliation and respectfully recognise that sovereignty has never been ceded in this place. And something we've often done in these spaces is to use the chat box to name the country that you are on and the traditional owners of the land where you are as part of your own acknowledgement. So thank you again for joining us, and thanks Glynn for giving up some time this evening or this afternoon. It's terrific to have you here. We'll have about an hour together. Glynn and I will have some conversation, and then there'll be an opportunity for more questions at the end of that time. Glynn is the minister of the community of St Luke's, a Presbyterian church in Auckland, where he's been since 2013. Before that, he was the vicar of St Matthew's in the city, an Anglican church, also in Auckland. I'm not sure if it still does, but St Luke's used to describe itself on its website as a reconciling and inclusive community.
This meeting is being recorded.
A reconciling and inclusive community where all who come to worship, to celebrate or to explore are accepted and respected, where all people are invited to participate in community and the worship life of the church without insisting that they become like us in order to be acceptable, including believers and agnostics, conventional Christians and questioning skeptics, men and women, those of all sexual orientations and gender identities, those of all races and cultures, those of all classes and abilities, those who hope for a better world, and those who have lost hope. I first met Glynn some years ago at a Common Dreams conference, I think in Melbourne, when he was still the vicar of St Matthew in the city, and it's terrific to be able to reconnect and to chat with you this evening. So thank you. So Glynn, perhaps you could start by sharing something of your story. After many years in the Anglican Church, I think growing up in the Anglican Church, 29 years in ordained ministry in the Anglican Church, you took the appointment at St Luke's. I wonder if you could tell us a little bit about that journey.
Thank you, Jeremy. And yes, I'd like just to start by acknowledging my thanks for being invited here tonight. And it's great to see, as people were joining the conversation, a number of friends in Australia. Saw some friends there in England come in, and saw my editor for the book, Hugh. So it's nice to, and Hugh and I had many little discussions about odd words and punctuation, all the things you do with an editor. So lovely to be here with you all. Yes, I suppose it's a bit unusual, and I could only find one other minister who transferred from being Anglican to Presbyterian in New Zealand, although two more have joined the Presbyterian fold since me. But it wasn't any great sort of earth-shattering decision to follow, King Calvin and all that sort of theology, which I don't hold to any of it. I'm what's within the progressive tradition of Christianity, and I'd also describe myself in the mystical tradition. St Luke's, the community I'm a part of, is very orientated towards social justice, and that's been I suppose, a theme ever since I was ordained back in 1984 when I was all of about 25 years of age, and been involved in parishes and communities that are trying to empower people for change. And so I've been along that track. But the Presbyterian invitation, when I wrote liturgy when I was an Anglican, I was always running foul of, bishops and people like that. And it was always done kind of within constraints. The joy of the free church, as in sort of Presbyterianism, is that those constraints are just really the constraint of bringing the people you worship with, connect with you. And so I've had a lot of freedom given to me to start to explore other ways of expressing faith in language. So yeah, it's been a great journey. Should say just a few other things about myself. I'm married to Stephanie, who I think might have joined the conversation as well from another part in our house. We're all kind of locked down here in what New Zealand calls level 4. And we've been blessed, Stephanie and I, with 4 children who are all in their 20s, and 3 of them with partners. And also we have animals in our house, and you would have seen there's 3, those of you who have bought the little book called A Book of Blessings. Yep, there it is in focus. Would have seen there's 3 animal blessings. And right now my life is being orientated around a 5-month-old dog. So we have a puppy who's very enthusiastic and would really like to be in on this Zoom call. Another part of me, which again is reflected in the book, is that in 2010, I was very sick and was in hospital for about 3 or 4 months in total, and off work for about 13 months. And there's about, probably I was counting them up, there's about 4 or 5 poems that reflect that experience. And once you've been through an experience like that, it just opens your eyes or ears to when you're in with other people as a minister in a hospital situation or with friends dying, you have a little bit more awareness of what's going on, I suppose. And of course, it's a great, when you're that sick, it's a great inward journey as well as an outward physical journey towards health and well-being.
And so bringing together all those different experiences into writing liturgy and prayers, how did this book come together?
Well, really through the encouragement of friends and through the wonders of Facebook, because as I'd write them, I'd often throw one up on Facebook and got a lot of positive response. And that's what I find the good thing about Facebook is, you can write something really creative for the conversation. You might get 1 or 2 emails saying, hey, thanks, that was great. But on Facebook, you get a whole lot of likes, or you get people discussing, arguing with you. And it's a great forum in that regard. And so, I was nudged along, and then through friends in Australia, put me in contact with Coventry Press, and got in contact with Hugh and Nikki, and away we went.
And so that process of sifting through, and deciding what's in and what's out, were there broad themes that you wanted to discover, to capture, or did you just have favourites, or the ones that got the most likes, went in and the other ones didn't? What was that process of discernment like?
It was really, I suppose, the ones I didn't like, I reworked and said, what is there in here that I do like? And I was quite a hard taskmaster on myself. I've also got a friend who's a poet in Montana who I don't think he's joining us tonight because it's 1 a.m. But we know each other well enough that he says that's bullshit, Glynn, in the nicest way. And also in our parish here, there's a woman who's written quite a number of books, and she's a great friend to have in these things. And then, of course, sifting through with Hugh, who did all the hard yards with me at the end.
It seems to me that there are plenty of poets who are theologians. Do you think, the two go naturally together? Do you need to be a poet to be a theologian?
I think in the space where you think about God and try to find words about a God, you run out of language. Language has some difficulties, and particularly if you want to have some precision in language. I mean, look at all the Trinitarian debates over the years, over the centuries. Precision in language when it comes to God is very elusive, and so I quite like hinting. I mean, not many of the poems are particularly about God. I think there's the most explicit might be number 35 if you have a copy of the book. I'll just read you the last verse. And it says, "Blessed is the elusive divine, moving within and without beyond, paradoxical, questionable, a mystery, a child playing." So that's about as much of a statement about God that I make in the book. And in a sense, I wrote this book not for people who are part of faith communities. I wrote it for people who have a sense of spirituality in life. So whether it's walking in the bush, or whether it's just making gingerbread, or being a grandfather, it's just people who see the sacred through everything they do. And so there's only probably, I don't know, of the 70, maybe 10, if that have the word God in them, or the word divine. Most is just saying how blessed it is, how wonderful it is, that, children splash in puddles and gingerbread with thick lashings of butter on top is just such a wonderful thing when you're feeling miserable, and just, celebrating the ordinariness as extraordinary.
So that, the language of blessing, I think John O'Donoghue, who's a poet and theologian, says blessing is not a sentiment or a question. It's a gracious invocation where the human heart pleads with the divine heart. So what do you think? What is going on in blessing? If we're releasing it or rescuing it from something that a priest somehow does, what's going on?
Yeah, there's two words in Greek around power, and one of them's translated as authority. I think you say it exousia. And the other one is dunamis. And dunamis is kind of like exousia is delegated authority. So in the Anglican tradition, a priest bless because they're vicariously there for the bishop, or you're acting on behalf of the authority of the church in giving a blessing. So that's why an individual priest might get in trouble for blessing a same-sex marriage, because they're meant to be acting on the authority of the church. The other meaning of power, that dunamis is like the inner strength power, which is a relational power between two or more people. And most of the blessings are written with that sort of sense that we actually bless each other, if not by words, more so in little acts of love and grace and gifts and presence to one another. So it isn't something that's the preserve of ministers and priests, but it is a means through which, how I understand God, is present. So it's not divorced from church language totally, but it is a relational power where blessing comes into someone's life.
I think O'Donoghue picks some of that up. He says, in the parched deserts of postmodernity, a blessing can be like the discovery of a fresh well. It'd be lovely if we could rediscover our power to bless each other, which I think, some of what you're saying, that there's a depth to this that goes beyond some of the other understandings of blessing.
Yeah.
And so, you said before, that a priest might get in trouble for blessing something that the church thinks is unblessable. What are the limits of blessing? Are there limits in that sense?
Well, I don't think so. I mean, some of these blessings are deliberately provocative. For example, sickness for many years, centuries, was seen as something of a curse. So, blessed are the sick is kind of, that's the title of one of the poems. It sort of speaks into that, or blessed are the foolish. And I haven't quite written one yet to say, blessed are those who are nasty and horrible to you. But there's hints of that in some of them. So because I believe that rather than God, in a sense, being any sort of supreme being over against us or as an object or something, or even God within us, I think we're all in God, that the whole of life and the cosmos is in God. So that's a very much bigger notion of God. So it's, there's nothing excluded from the grace and energy and love of what I call God.
And I guess out of that, bubbles up, one of the themes that runs through the blessings is this sense of gratitude. And I guess our response to being included in that embrace is a response of gratitude. But gratitude's something that can be really hard in a world of COVID, calamity, lockdown, all those things. How do we find or rediscover that place so that we can live out of a place of gratitude instead of being crushed by all those other things?
Yeah, we're a bit like a lot of Australia at presently. We're in the midst of all that, and I suppose I'm helping people and helping particularly the congregation I'm responsible to and with to celebrate the little things, to notice the birds, because the birds are loving the cars being in the garages. The birds are out there, and we're allowed to do some walking around. So we're seeing our neighbours a lot more. This is urban, city living. And people waving a bit, and lots of animals out, and huge distances between everyone, of course. But there's just people are doing things. They're baking a lot more at home. They're trying to encourage one another. We have a little pastoral care group in our parish who looks after people who sort of, I suppose, more sicker than others, let's say. And usually there's about 12 people that we look at. Well, that group currently is ringing about 60 people every week. So the phones are running hot. Now, this is, the demographic of our church is an older demographic. We would have 70%, 80% would be over 65. But there's a lot of care happening towards people and encouraging people to delight in the little things. And actually, a lot of people are just switching off the news and just saying, well, unless you're going to give us some encouragement, we don't need to hear this every day. We can hear it every second day. And finding things to engage with and mentally stimulate ourselves, books to read, etc.
Imelda commented in the chat that idea of original blessing. Is it? I mean, is it as simple as just that reorientation? From and it's not rose-tinted glasses, is it? It's something more than that.
No, I don't think it's about positive thinking. I think it's about choosing to look for love and look for grace and to tell other people about it, and to be kind and all those other things that go with that. I mean, there's one blessing. I think it's in this collection. It says, "Blessed are those who read to children." And my most popular YouTube, we're all into YouTube these days. Well, I create 2 or 3 things a week, and I get the most hits on just reading good children's stories. So these aren't religious children's stories; they're just good children's stories, and people love just hearing a fun children's story.
Have you got another blessing that you could read to us?
Yeah. So talking of COVID times, as you might know, New Zealand's got into this teddy bear thing. So I'll read you. And my old Ted is, you can't quite see in the blurring. Anyway, he features. That's my teddy bear from years ago. Blessed are the teddy bears, newly acquired and elegantly attired, and those long on our journey whom love has worn bare. Blessed are those who love through thick, thin tries and tragedies, mud, grease, and the washing machine, always there when we roll over. Blessed are the teddy bears with furry arms open wide for hugs, in a world closed up inside for fear of being hit with heartache, hurt. Blessed is the unearned, unsought embrace of teddy bears, whether you're poor, pretty, or plain, conventional, different, or brainy. Blessed are we, teddy bears, who counter the fear and hurt of life with the simplicity and grace of unconditional love.
Yeah, thank you.
Jeremy, I think another thing in my blessings you'll find from time to time, I like a bit of fun, and I like to laugh. And if you've got the book, I just read the other night, the third one, the Blessed are the Forgetful. And I'll just read one verse from that to give you a sense of it. But it goes, blessed are the forgetful, and then there's a new stanza with the clumsy and then the foolish. So blessed are the forgetful who didn't remember the muffins until the acrid smell crept up the corridor, who didn't remember her name though you'd known her all your life. And when you get into your 60s, these things become very real. And it flows us with blessed are we when forgetful, etc., knowing that we are one of many, nay of a multitude, who trip their way through life, embracing the floor as it comes up to meet us.
So Glynn, what's your hope in terms of how people might use these blessings?
Well, one hand, use them however you want. For those of you who are church ministers or elders and have responsibility for constructing liturgies, please, just say adapted from, did it in the right sort of notation, but put God in there if you want more of God. I'm happy. I'm not particularly precious about these things. Use it however you want to, in whatever way you want to. And you don't have to ask me for permission. You just need to do that sort of, copyright thing, Coventry Press. Yeah.
Yeah, good. Imelda O'Loughlin made a comment about original blessing. Imelda, do you want to say something more about that idea of original blessing?
I need to unmute.
That's it.
I think one of the lessons I've learned is that you never provoke a bishop, whether it be by saying, when are we going to pray, or by offering a comment. Yeah, I guess a journey with my daughter through many years of her discovering that she was gay and that she wanted to have a family. And the wonder and I guess the grace of God when she referred to that as her original blessing. And I agree with Glynn that blessings are something that we convey on each other. And that's the wonderful beauty of them. So, yeah, Jeremy, for putting me on the spot. Yeah, that's what I've got to say. I think blessings are so important in our lives, so important to offer to others in a way that's real, that we bless their lives, we bless their hopes, we bless their way of being, we bless their relationship with ourselves and with God. Thank you, Glynn. I love that blessing about the earth coming up to meet you. I recently had a dreadful fall and ended up with a black eye, so thank you.
Thanks, Imelda. Thank you. Jenny, you've got a question for Glynn. Jenny Dawson.
Yeah, hi, kia ora.
Oh, you've just dropped out there, Jenny, but
Okay.
you asked, try again.
Yeah, kia ora, Glynn from Pukerua Bay. It's
Kia ora.
been lovely to read some of the blessings as they've been put on Facebook, and I think I've borrowed one or two with permission to use in different situations. My question is, was there one that you absolutely had to include in the book for yourself because you loved it so much, and one you still have or had doubts about, both ends of the spectrum?
Some get a little bit more personal than others. You'll see one about angels towards the end of the book. That's about people who floated in and out of my consciousness when I was in hospital. So that gets, and I'm not talking about mystical beings from off the planet. I'm talking about people who love me, connected with me, at times medical staff. So so that's that gets personal. I mean, the ones about living with an unruly dog, yeah, we had an unruly dog, not the current puppy, and it's really funny because at 5 a.m. in the morning there's this untalked about community of people with difficult dogs who try to walk when there's no one else around, because these are dogs who look sweet and lovely and yet want to attack other dogs. Anyway, so that that one has a sort of feel for me. Other ones, there's ones where a good friend of mine, and you'll know Bishop Jim White, one of them refers to the time when he and I were, we've been mates since 11-year-olds, and through his dying. So they all sort of connect with me in different ways, Jenny. Yeah.
And one that you're still unsure about?
I wondered, there's a couple of shorter ones, and I wondered about including them, but then I actually quite like the mix. And Hugh didn't throw up his hands in horror, I don't think it does.
One of the things that it seems that through all of the blessings, you've worked to sort of release God from traditional imagery and language that we've bound God up with in so many ways, but also release blessings from the power of an individual and sort of set them loose in the world in a bigger way. What, for you, what's the importance of that in this space?
I'm quite on a theological level very attracted by the people who call themselves weak theologians, and they often write God not with a capital G but with a small g, and look for metaphors of God in the Bible where God is not a big powerful warrior king, patriarch of all patriarchs, but is in the small and the little and what's considered weak. And so children were considered weak in the biblical times, still are considered, when you talk about rights and where the money goes in hospital budgets and all sorts of things. Children often come down the pecking order in our society, no matter what our rhetoric is or the rhetoric of the politicians. And so, I think children have got a lot to teach us and always have about spirituality. I think animals have got a lot to teach us about spirituality. I think connecting with the bush and the sea and walking barefoot has a lot to teach us about spirituality. So these little things, rather than the old-fashioned notions of a big, powerful God teaching us.
I think that's to come back to poets and the language of the poets. That gift of being able to capture, sometimes in a very few words, the sorts of things that theologians have wrestled with and for centuries, and to point to something much bigger. I think is an incredible gift. And the best poets are able to use an economy of words to open up images in quite a profound way. And I think some of your blessings do that. A question from Helen. Helen, do you want to ask your question about woes as opposed to blessings?
Yeah, just as you were talking about blessings, I was thinking of the opposite, curses. And then I started thinking about how Jesus sometimes, with the Pharisees, announces some woes. Do you think there's sometimes reason for that as well?
Yeah, I think one of the great poet theologians is actually a local to Melbourne, who's Michael Lunick, and one of his pieces says, God, do not forgive them because they know precisely what they're doing. And he talks about people who pollute and ravage the earth, and I can't remember now. I struggle with some of that. There's one of mine, I'm just looking for, it's number 22. I just frame it a little differently. I put one of the great questions that I would ask the God I don't believe in is, why are people nasty and hurtful? Why? And it starts off that poem, blessed are those who sit listening with a heart of solace and support to the wounded friend skewered by nastiness. That's that kind of personal level of nastiness. But how do you include nasty people in the community? And how do you extend love? And it's really difficult. And communities have to protect their vulnerable people from such skewering. And I would add, communities have to protect their ministers and priests from such skewering. But yeah, that's a problem. But I'm very reticent to get into this woe betide you who profit from unjust, arms sales or whatever, list of nasties. I preferred, again, I suppose, to look at the beautiful things in life, not to ignore that other side, but to counter it.
So there won't be a second volume, a book of woes.
No.
Do you think it's a book that the world needs right now? Is your your hope is kind of speaking into a place where there's an absolute need for blessing, or do you think people kind of get it, and this is a contribution to a conversation that's already happening? Do we need to do it better, I guess, is the question.
Yeah, I think that one of the basic spiritual disciplines is that of thankfulness and learning how to be thankful. And of course, that gets hard when hard things happen to you or happen to those you love, where people are victimized or unjust acts are done towards them. It's really hard to contain that spirit of thankfulness. And in this time of COVID, how do you maintain that sense of thankfulness when all the fear is around and everything else? So that's, if anything, I would hope this book helps people to, like after I came back from the dead, literally. The first thing I always say in the morning is, I'm alive. Hey, this is great. And then secondly, I'm loved, and name the people I love. And then everything else comes into perspective after that. After you're alive and loved, you sort of feel, right, some way we'll cope. Somehow with the mess of today, we'll cope. But those sort of, really basic personal building blocks for me, being alive and being loved.
I'm interested in putting Hugh or Nikki on the spot, and so completely unprepared. But I'm wondering if either of them would like to comment about why they thought this was an important book. It's a big thing for a publisher to take a risk on a book. So I'm interested what it was about this collection of blessings that captured your attention, Nikki or Hugh, that you were prepared to get in on this conversation. But that might be a bit unfair to put them completely on the spot.
You can put Hugh on the spot for that one, but I'm not sure he knows how to unmute his system. So, look,
I would say something too, if that's okay.
Certainly.
Hello. Yeah. I really was attracted to this book precisely because of the language and the ordinariness of the subjects. Like Glynn, I'm increasingly uncomfortable with dogmatic credo statements about God. I warm very much to the opinion of Thomas Keating, who says that God's first language is silence, and everything else is a flawed interpretation of that silence. And I loved the poems, I loved the blessings, because they're about the ordinary things in the search for meaning. And if I could just add another thing, I do hope that there is a second volume, and I would also encourage any of your people who are participating to be in touch with me if they have any ideas about publishing in these veins, because it attracts me enormously. Congratulations, Glenn, and thanks for publishing with Coventry.
Thank you, Hugh. And there's about 35 blessings in a new stack. When I reach some magical number, you can tell me what the magical number is. I'll be in touch.
Okay.
I have to say, Glynn, it's a real joy to have something positive. As you said it earlier, you watch the news, you think, I'll just turn that off. People are looking for the positive. There's so much negativity that this is literally a blessing to everyone. So thank you.
Okay. Thank you, Nikki.
Thanks, Nikki. And Hugh, sorry to put you on the spot, but thanks for your comments.
I think some of the poems too, Jeremy, they evoke for us our memories. As soon as you start off a poem that says, blessed, what did I title it? Blessed be grandfathers. You immediately go, for those who've known their grandfathers, and particularly if they've known their grandfathers positively, they go into a whole area, an arena of memory. And memory can be, can really help build resilience when times are tough. And, I was delighted that there's a typo there, by the way, Hugh. That's Alan Hayward. So this is number 60, if you've got the book, Blessed Be Grandfathers. And the photo is of a grandfather in our church, a most gentle man. And I thought, wow, he would be. So I said, have you got a picture of you with your grandkids, and did all the permission check with the parents of the kids, and the kids are now grown up, and so checked with them. But it's just a lovely picture of this man, very gentle man. He was the registrar of a university, and dealing with students all day. But here he is with his two grandchildren walking in the garden. And again, blessed be grandfathers. These are the last verses. Blessed be grandfathers, a vocation of being, ready to be called, for whom love us all. And blessed be we who have known and been loved by such grandfathers.
Glynn, I'd love you to read number 61, May you be blessed with an unruly dog, because I think it captures some of the joy and the madness of all of that.
There's a poster made of this blessing before it got in this book by Tui Motu, the Catholic magazine printed in Dunedin, and but the dog on it is not my dog. This is the real dog who was the unruly one in the picture in this book. It says, may you be blessed with an unruly dog, a hybrid from the pound who makes a mess like a holy garden or gnawed furniture. May you be blessed with a wet tongue and eager foul breath, one Saturday sleeping, compelling you to arise and grudgingly respond. May you be blessed with a visit to the vet, 2 a.m. on the far side of town, after finding the gnawed wrapper of your favorite chocolate strewn down the corridor. May you be blessed with a dog impossible to walk in canine company, to say nothing of feline, a drag on your patience and fellow dog walkers' forbearance. May you be blessed with being told that these dog trials are a test of your character and fortitude, one of life's lessons that you somehow stood in. There comes a time when, looking into those dewy eyes, you might see how enmeshed your lives have become, and your soul is laid bare. You may have no idea what this means, but not even death can part you. I use the word soul quite a bit, by the way, Jeremy, and others. It comes with no great metaphysical explanation. I use it like at other times I'd use heart or spirit. But something about us that is non-material.
Yeah. Well, Glynn, thank you so much. And thanks for being with us, and thank you for the gift of the book. The very last stanza of the very last blessing says, "Blessed is a world where with courage, kindness, and grace we stand together and create this vision of hope." And I think, that to me sums up that sense of blessing and that work that we have to do to bless each other and to be a blessing in the world. And I've really appreciated the opportunity to chat the gift of the book and this time. So thank you so much. And I'd encourage people to buy the book, Coventry Press. I'm sure it's available widely. Nikki, what's the best way for people to get the book?
Here in Australia, it's definitely coventrypress.com.au. In New Zealand, Roma Christian Supplies have the book. Internationally, outside of all of that, is the local version of Amazon Book Depository et al. I use those as examples, whoever is your main one internationally. Easy. We have plenty. Well, we're nearly at a reprint there, Glynn. I'll get that typo fixed.
I'll tell you about another one too. I find it amazing, this thing. Like I got some friends in Tulsa, Oklahoma, and they got their book a day after I got mine from Melbourne. It's just like, wow, what is this world we live in? It's just quite mind-blowing, really.
Yeah. And Garrett's, I saw Tony Robertson. Yep, Garrett's just have it. They get it from us. We print, publish, and distribute. So, yeah.
Terrific. Yeah. Well, so widely available, a terrific little book. Use it for your personal and private devotions, but I think liturgically there's plenty of ways it could be used as well. So thank you. Glynn, any final thoughts or comments to leave us with?
No, just hey, from this side of the ditch, want to say we love you on your side of the ditch, Jeremy, and and concerned like you are for New South Wales and Victoria and what they're going through, and so just want to say, hey, lots of love and strength and solidarity in the days and months ahead.
Yeah. Well, thank you. Well, let me read that last stanza again. Blessed is a world where with courage, kindness, and grace we stand together and create this vision of hope.